What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Tribe of Visionaries. I'm your host, Jason Merritt, joined by my co-host, Paul Birmingham. And today we are joined with Teddy Benz. Teddy is from New York originally, currently lives in the Greenville, South Carolina greater area, and focuses on land development. What's up, Teddy? How you doing, brother?
Doing well. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, great that you're here, man. So tell us a little bit about your journey. Like, how did you get into real estate? How did you, I guess, make your way to the lovely South here? And tell us about what you do now currently.
Sure. So, like you mentioned, I was born in New York, but not that New York, Buffalo, New York. So more so Canadian than New Yorker. But lots of cold, gray winters, and spending about 25 years of those. I always knew, like, inkling in my head, like, hey, I'm going to get out of here one day. How I'm going to do it, not sure. I actually wanted to be an actor for a little bit, so I thought I was going to move to California and go out west. But realized that entrepreneurship and business, as much as it might be a struggle, is a much more surefire way to be able to go where you want to go when you want to go compared to acting. And so how I came to that discovery was after going to school for computer science and getting my first and only true like workforce W-2 job as a software developer. Um, I realized I just didn't like the cubicle life and wanted something different. I had purchased a house just with a normal FHA loan, first house getting out of my parents, had a good W-2 job that helped me to afford it. But one of my goals was to not pay my mortgage. I didn't want to rent for sure, and I didn't even want to really have a mortgage payment. Very frugal minded and wanted to just basically live rent mortgage free. And so I got a duplex, got to house hack it, rented out the upper unit to some tenants, and then actually rented out one of the bedrooms in my lower unit to my cousin. So at the end of the day, I was living there for I was making $100 a month to live there. And so I thought that's pretty sweet. Could I do that like with other properties that I don't have to live in and just rent them out to other people, and started learning like, oh yeah, people are doing this full time. Like people in real estate they're not just flippers or people making a profit rehabbing a property, but like people are actually like full time landlords. And so that led me down a whole rabbit hole of learning about wholesaling and creative finance. And I just quickly learned like, whoa, like I could just go full time into this and actually make a decent income, in fact significantly better than my W-2.
So you started out wholesaling or fixing and flipping originally, but when you got into the investment side versus
Mhm.
owning your house and kind of renting out the bedrooms, like what was your? I know you do land development stuff now, but what was your initial thing?
Yeah, so it was like a very slow burn realization that I could focus and spend all my time in real estate. I originally thought, oh, okay, I'm gonna keep working my job as a developer and keep saving up 15, 20% down payments so I could buy houses conventionally. That's the only way I knew how to buy them. I would just be um, buy one or two properties a year. And by the time I was 40, I'd have, a nice little portfolio and I could retire early. And then I started learning about, oh, there's hard money and there's private money lenders, people who lend the down payment. I was like, wait, I don't even need to save up my own money to get in the deal. So I bought a couple properties that way, still a little more traditional than how I would, prefer to buy properties nowadays. But it was my first start. Like, I can actually get a couple more properties each month or each year than I originally thought. So I just started out doing, I guess, burrs primarily. Did a
Mhm.
couple of those in Buffalo, right near the University of Buffalo where I worked, and then I discovered wholesaling. It's like, whoa, I can actually make a significant active income in this real estate, and I was terrible at it. I could not. Like, I it took me like 9 months to wholesale my first house. Granted, I was doing it, on the side while working, and so maybe spending an hour or two a day on
Mhm.
it most. And so it took me a while and a lot of learning curve. But then I discovered creative finance, and I was like, whoa, I could even get into deals with no money out of pocket, even from a private lender, or very low money. And that's what really piqued my interest in like diving into it full time. This was happening around the same time as good old friend COVID and New York, lots of fun regulations. And my job was working for the University of Buffalo, which is a government job. And certain rules and policies were coming out that I didn't necessarily agree with, whether agree with, getting vaccinated or not. I just didn't like kind of the force of the whole thing that New York State had. So it didn't turn out that they were going to force anyone, but it was looming there. And so that was in my mind, like, I better get out of here sooner rather than later. So decided to earlier than I wanted to just go full on into real estate and figure it out. So it wasn't until I purchased a seller finance house in Greenville and just moved down here with never having visited the state. Well,
Wow.
I visited the state, never visited the city before. I
Mhm.
just knew like Greenville seems like a great area. It's great for real estate, great for business, great for family, and I can play hockey there. That's super fun. It checked so many boxes. I was like, hey, I'm just going to try to find a house there, and I'm going to move down there, and I did. Sight unseen, and it was a very good decision. I'm happy I made it, and that just opened me up to the world of land investing, because there's so much land here compared to up in Buffalo, which is like already a very developed city, and there's not a lot of land unless you go like hours drive away. And so Greenville, there's so much land and undeveloped space that it was only natural, I think, that eventually I would start to pick up on like, oh, like this is something that maybe I could have some success in compared to wholesaling houses.
So
So
I gotta ask you something real quick, Teddy. There is not a lot of people who would move 1,000 miles away from where they live into a sight unseen house. And I'm gonna guess that the house you picked was more about the financing structure than it was the house itself. Is that a fair assumption?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And just to clarify, it's only 762 miles. I've made that drive quite a few times, so I know the exact miles.
Fair enough.
Uh,
Fair enough.
no, but yeah, I guess I was just of the mindset like with this real estate thing, especially creative real estate, like
Mhm.
I can just go wherever I want. So worst case, I absolutely hate it. I'll move to Tennessee, I'll move to North
Sure,
Carolina, I'll move to
sure.
Florida and just, pick the next place. Or worst case, I'll put my tail between my legs and I'll go back to Buffalo because it turns out it actually was the best place all along.
Nice.
Um,
So
but
is this your normal nature, or was there something? I mean, obviously, there was the looming changes in New York happening right around that same time. But was that the thing that pushed you, or is this just what Teddy does? Teddy doesn't have a problem picking up and moving.
Teddy is very conservative in nature usually.
Mm-hmm.
Especially at that time. So throughout high school, throughout college, I was very like book smart, great in school, like always top of my class, and just wanted to do things safely and the right way.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know exactly what the change in my mind was. I don't know if I give all the credit to Pace Morby and Sub 2 and just a lot of like paradigm shifts in there, but just I don't know, something it just all seemed right, and it was maybe the most adventurous and risk-taking I've ever been, and it paid off. So, I'm a
yeah,
little more daring than I used to be. But at that time, it was definitely outside my typical character to make a decision like that.
yeah, I think that's one thing that he's inspired in me is stepping out of your box. I'm a little bit more introverted and stuff like that. And even doing this show, like I always thought, hey, yeah, it'd be cool to do podcast stuff like that. And then he challenged us, and I started doing them, and I keep getting more and more comfortable with it. But yeah, it's amazing the things that you do by becoming uncomfortable, how you challenge yourself and push yourself and discover new things that you actually like and enjoy doing.
I love that. I have a theory, and one day I'll write a book about it, or I'll die first.
What's your first land transaction where you got into land, and how did that come about, and how did you know that was your calling within real estate moving forward?
Yeah, I got into land, just like stumbled into it completely. So a friend who wholesales houses in North Carolina, he lives in Raleigh, but was marketing to Charlotte, uh, reached out to me one day. I was like, hey, I need some help in Spartanburg, South Carolina. I need boots on the ground. Um, I'm in Greenville. It's like a 30-40 minute drive. And what he needed help with was getting a contract signed by an elderly couple. He had been trying to purchase their house in Charlotte, their primary residence, and they're like 95 years old. He they told him no, and like, we're going to be in this house until the day we die, but we've got this land, 18 acres down in Spartanburg, if you're interested in it. And they wanted something like $6,000 per acre, something like that. To me, that meant nothing. To Ryan, my friend, it also meant nothing. But he's like, that seems like a good price. So sure, I'll buy it, see what I can do with it. His plan was to wholesale it at the end of the day. But he needed me to go and get the contract signed. I was happy to do it, just help out. Met them in person. Um, Signed the contract. It wasn't even until I looked at the contract that I realized, like, oh, this is for like quite a bit of land. You're buying 18 acres and a 2-acre parcel. But it was like, that's cool. I don't really know much about land, but good on you. And so sent him back the contract and thought, my job was done, just helped out. And then he calls me a week later and was like, hey, remember that land? Can you help me with it? I'm like, probably not. And he's like, well, he's like, I personally know nothing about land, and I know nothing about land in Spartanburg, South Carolina, especially. And again, I was like, well, I really don't know anything about land, but at least I know something about Spartanburg and people in it. And so decided to take a crack at finding a buyer for it, and ended up finding, just in my own personal network, I found a buyer within 7 days. We closed 7 days later, and it's like, whoa, that was the easiest wholesale transaction I've ever done in my life. Like, um, you know, to back to when I was struggling with wholesaling houses, like I wasn't completely unsuccessful, just not, didn't do as well as I would have liked. So, definitely had my successes and good experiences, but it was always something, like some hurdle to get over. Like there's a tenant in the property and they won't let anyone in to see it, or the owner lied about this or that, like they added some illegal fifth bedroom or something, and there's always some like hidden problem, it seemed like. Whereas with land, it's like there's almost nothing hidden. Like you can find it out from either online county records or by calling the county. And sure, it might take a little bit to discover, like digging into a deed to find, some kind of a um, something that an owner put on it, like a covenant, like you can't do this or that. So sure, there's still some digging and some research that needs to be done. But the key thing is it can be done. Like you don't need to ask the seller, like, oh, did this happen or that happen? It's just, it's like you just can find out that information. And then when it comes to actually selling it to your end buyer, like it's like, hey, go look at it. Like, here's all the public information I found about it. I wrapped it up nice for you to look at it, but you can go and verify anything else you want. You can go visit in person. You can walk it. Like, there's no showings. Just go out there and look at it when you want, and let me know if you like it. And it's just so much simpler in my experience. So decided I learned that from that first transaction, and got a hunch like maybe it will be like this for all of my transactions, and decided to just kind of wing it and start marketing to landowners, not really knowing what I was doing, but to figure it out. And my hunch was right. It's much easier, not only dealing with the sellers, but the buyers as well.
So you said that first deal was $6,000 an acre purchase, which mind blown that you could buy something for $6,000 an acre. Love it. What do you think I mean, maybe you know the number off the top of your head, maybe you don't, but ballpark, when you sold that, how much an acre was that? What kind of profit was there margin wise?
We made just over 8,000 an acre.
Oh, nice. And that was
Um,
18-ish acres.
yep.
Nice.
Yeah, so there were three of us involved in the deal. So I don't have the numbers remembered exactly, but I ended up making I think like $7,000 on it, which it's not huge, but it's also not nothing either.
Right.
And especially to have spent like 7 days finding someone, like that's $1,000 a day. Amazing.
Yeah.
And so honestly, what I know now, I could have made so much more out of that deal. Like I could have, really like found the right buyer for it with, what I know about marketing nowadays. But I also could have taken it down myself and subdivided it and chopped it up into smaller parcels and sold each of those parcels probably at like $10,000 or $12,000 per acre and made substantially more. There would have been much more risk to it, and it probably wouldn't have been the best idea for my first deal. But like if that same deal came across my desk today, I could have made so much more on it. But I'm like so happy that I got that little win
Yep.
to kind of push me in that right direction of land is pretty cool.
Yeah, and I really do want to key in on what you just said because it's so important, right? Like the deal that you did to get you started in what you do now, the importance of that isn't to maximize and get your most money and do all those things, right? The real importance is to take that first little step, that easy step in the right direction that gets you on the path that's so important, right? Like had you had to have taken down the deal and subdivided the deal and made it all, shovel ready, and that's how you had to do the first deal, do you think you would have been here right now, Teddy? Do you think you would have made that step?
No, I would have accidentally dug my own grave.
Exactly. I love that. So where are you right now? Like, obviously, well, not physically, but like investment wise, what does it look like? You obviously started with the duplex, which I love, by the way, for a brand new investor, because now you don't necessarily have to live with the person that you're house hacking with. But what does it look like today? What's that portfolio?
Mhm. So I have a couple of rentals still up in Buffalo, but mostly everything I'm doing nowadays is in the Southeast, so
Mhm.
stemming out of Greenville. So I have uh, actually no true rentals in South Carolina because of South Carolina taxes. It makes it a little tough. So I have a couple. I have 3 wraps and then a lease option here in Greenville. I learned that doing a lease option is not the best idea because as the true owner of the property, I'm responsible for taxes and
Mhm.
I have to pay the 6% tax rate as opposed to the reduced 4% tax rate for a primary resident. And so
Mhm.
even though my lease option buyer they're the primary resident and for all intents and purposes, they will be the owner one day. Uh, South Carolina doesn't care, and they make me pay like 3.5 times what my buyer would be paying in taxes. So that was a tough way to learn. Don't do lease options in South Carolina.
Or make sure you
And
bake that all into the rental price, so that way you can just
Yeah.
slide that right
yeah,
over.
well, yeah, I learned well after committing to a 3-year lease. Like, oh
Ooh.
yeah,
For everyone out there, if you're going to do anything in South Carolina, there's only 2 ways to have that 4% exemption. Well, there's a military clause that I won't cover here, but the first way is you own this house because you bought it and you live in it. The second way is you're doing a land contract. So while the deed is not in your name yet, you have a registered sale. So you are technically the one who owns it, even though the deed hasn't transferred, and you can get the 4%. That's a great
yep,
point, Tabby.
that's the key thing. You got that beneficial interest in the property. Yeah.
Yeah.
Lease option
So,
doesn't give you that.
so you kind of transitioned into doing some multiple different things with land now. You even mentioned subdividing the larger parcels up into smaller parcels and selling those off. What kind of what projects do you have going on currently that you're working on?
Yeah, so on the land side specifically, I just have a handful of, I guess, infill flips in the process. A couple that are just under contract, a couple that are actually assigned to end buyers. Yes, I'm still assigning land in South Carolina, but those are,
Now, can
and
you
what I
do
mean
that,
by
Eddie? Can
infill,
you assign land in South Carolina?
1000%.
Yes, you
I
can.
I will fist fight any attorney who disagrees with me.
What is it? Commercial and land, or commercial and land you can still assign? You just can't do it with residential housing.
Yep, commercial vacant land.
Yeah, that's the key. Is if it's the law only the wholesale law only applies to residential land or residential real estate, which they
Mhm,
define as improved by 1 to 4 residential living units. And so
mhm.
land, even though it might be zoned residential, there's no living units on it, and therefore it's not residential real estate.
Right.
Um, But so the current deals I have, and they're nothing too exciting. They're what I call infill lots, which like they're just like filling in an already existing neighborhood. So like in the 80s or 90s, even like the 2000s, a developer went through there and started building properties, or maybe like people were just having their their residents built privately. They would just hire a builder, not even like a builder doing a full subdivision. It's just like people just started putting houses here, and just the way that things got cut up and built out, there's just like vacant lots in between a whole bunch of other vacant lots. And so they're usually, in a range between a quarter acre to like 1.5 acres. And the end buyers for those are usually, just a small spec builder who wants to build a house and sell it for a profit, basically a flip, just starting ground up
Mhm.
rather than like at demolition. And then, or people who want to build their primary residence there or put a mobile home or something. And so that's what I've been doing the past about year and a half, and have just really started transitioning more into leaning into that subdivide type play that I had mentioned. I've done one of those where I chopped 15 acres into 3 5-acre parcels, and it netted me probably, I think it was like $40,000 more than I would have as just like a simple flip. And so I really want to lean more into that, because while it does take a little bit more legwork to do it, it's not a ton more, and the upside is so much greater. And I do now have the knowledge and expertise to actually carry it out and not create my own grave.
Nice. And I think when I was talking to you like yesterday, or the day before, you were talking about like a redevelopment project that you have going on.
Yes, so this is separate from the land. So I still purchase residential, primarily real estate creatively. So that's how I ended up with uh, my one sad lease option and a couple wraps, and then some rentals in other states. Buying those just creative financing. But then recently partnered with a couple other guys here in Greenville, actually a suburb of it called Taylor's, unincorporated, like small town, southern area, that we bought just 2 commercial spaces and a residential house, and have plans now that we kind of have our foot in the door to hopefully buy up a lot more of this Main Street area in Taylor's and actually turn it into a true downtown. People kind of jokingly, they say downtown Taylor's, because like, yes, it's a main street, but like no one goes there, no one visits it. Like people just drive through it pretty much. There's like a barber shop and like a vacant office and a church and like a bunch of stuff that like people go to do those things and then leave. It's not like there's nothing like restaurants or get together or like entertainment or enjoyment or like really anything. It's very like a very transactional street, I guess is the way to put it. And there's a couple big buildings that are maybe a year or two out that we're kind of like putting feelers out, talking with these sellers to hopefully purchase them. But the end goal and what we envision is turning Taylor's into like a place that people like really want to be. So if anyone gets the urge to look into Greenville and then another suburb of it called Greer, those have already been redeveloped, revitalized, and they're awesome places. Like they did really good jobs with them, and Taylor's is right between the two of them, and so we're hoping to basically create another smaller version to kind of bridge the gap between those two towns.
And so the commercial spaces that you have, are you planning on basically giving those a facelift on the exterior and making them more inviting for commercial tenants?
Well, so the one that we bought was already in pretty good shape in outside. We went in, added an extra room to make 7 total offices, and have turned it into basically a private co-working office. So basically, like, people can rent individual office spaces that are locked and private, shared little kitchen area, 2 shared bathrooms. And so it's a shared office in its totality, but each tenant has their own individual office. And I don't know that we'll keep it that way for long, or maybe we will, keep it for a while, but it doesn't that isn't something that adds to, like, the draw of Taylor's, like I just mentioned, right? We definitely understand that there's a certain, like, temporary period where it's like, okay, we bought this property and we want to get it to a point that, maybe we gut the whole thing out and turn it into a restaurant, or turn it into some kind of cool podcasting co-working space or something. But that's not today. Like, today is, hey, let's make money and start building a foothold in this area, so that then we can turn around and start reinvesting the money and turning it into what we want. And so the other commercial space we have turned into a temporary, like, co-working podcasting space. It's not really meant for it or designed for it, but we're using it for our own purposes, and just see it as like a temporary use until we can kind of flesh out the bigger picture, which for that given property is actually eventually knocking it down. We own the property next to it, which is just vacant, not in very good shape. We want to knock that one down. But the trouble is, our next door neighbor, who's a little out of his mind and keeps raising his price, even after we've told him, yes, we'll pay you your asking price. He's being a little difficult and kind of like our roadblock in that. But what we eventually want to do is build just a new multi-story mixed use facility with nice green spaces in it. So, like restaurants, maybe a gym, stuff on the commercial stuff that, brings people in on the first floor, and then residential living space on the second, maybe third floor if they'll let us. So
Yeah,
it's a long ways off, I think, but we're, laying the seeds and groundwork for it today.
okay. Yeah. So are you guys monitoring the traffic count in that area?
I'm not personally. I just know that there's a lot of cars driving by. So it's
Well, that's good.
yeah. It's kind of, so I imagine it's pretty similar where you guys are at in, right, Myrtle Beach and Charleston areas, where the roads are pretty windy, and, like, you look at like Las Vegas or Phoenix, and they're very like grid-like systems
Yeah.
where, you know, you you can drive a perfect square pretty much at any like intersection you want and just end up in the same place. It's not like that at all
Right.
in South Carolina. The roads are so windy, and you have to like take this one road like around like 3 different bends to like basically move like 5 minutes as the bird flies. And so it's that main street, it is Main Street. Like, people must drive on it to get where they want to go. It's just they just pass through. They don't stop.
Yeah. They just don't have a reason to stop yet. So you'll be
Exactly.
getting
Yep.
Yeah, Myrtle Beach is pretty grid still. It's everything's
yeah.
blocks, and as it expands outward away from the ocean a little bit more, it gets a little more kind of whatever. But the roads still are straight for the most part, in and out. And then even the new highways that they're putting in general, pretty much run parallel with other roads. So, yeah, Charleston downtown obviously is more gridlocked and as far as it being a grid type system, but as it expands out, same type thing.
Yeah, so for us, like especially in Somerville, we have the historic Somerville, the downtown area that's been there for a long time, and that area, like when you're driving from point A to point B, none of it makes any sense. You're just driving, and all of a sudden, boop, got to take a right, up, take this bend, round, around, around, up, take a left, and it'll take you, I don't know, 5-7 miles to get an actual 2 miles on the map, like point A to point B. So I definitely understand what you're talking about. And then as it's expanded out, of course, the newer stuff they're doing, the grid patterns and everything makes more sense.
Yeah, I think Charleston has a lot of forks. You fork one road to another road to another road. Oh.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because once they started the expanse out west, everything was put on a grid. But out here, everything was just kind of mets and bounds. Like, oh, well, I think that property line's over there, and this road should go there.
Yeah, all the roads were determined by whatever the horses decided they wanted to do.
Yep.
It's like, that path's worn out. We'll make it a street.
Well, cool. So what other kind of things do you have in the pipeline for the future? Obviously, that sounds like a pretty big project, trying to redo the downtown. Do you have any big land projects in the pipeline at all, or pretty much just doing the infill lots currently?
No projects that are concrete yet. Like I said, just recently pivoted towards actually marketing specifically for properties that would be good for subdivide. So just starting easy, low-hanging fruit, pretty much reaching out to all the agents that have properties with substantial road frontage on them that are like 20 plus acres. Because the key with subdivision, or at least simple subdivision, able to parcel out a property without, losing all your hair dealing with the county, is to understand what their subdivision rules are. And in South Carolina, in particular, I think if you parcel it out into 5 acres or more, so each parcel that's created, each new parcel is 5 or more acres, then you're exempt from really most requirements that the county might impose on you. They're still going to have certain, you have to have certain road frontage requirements, which is, how much the property actually touches the road at the front, so road frontage. But beyond that, there's not a whole lot of other standards to meet. And so it can be very simple to chop a 30-acre parcel into 6 5-acre parcels. And then you can start, doing smaller lots, 3, 4, 2 acres relatively easily as well. But you have to start playing by some more rules. And so just, and road frontage then starts coming into play. And so not that not having substantial road frontage or being able to chop a lot up into 5-acre parcels is the end all be all. It just makes it so much easier at the end of the day. So it's like, let's just start with those easy ones that are listed on market, because we know that those people want to sell. Sure, they're probably asking way more than the property is generally worth, but the beauty of the subdivide play is that you can typically pay more than most people who want to go in there and just try to flip it, for example, or you can create value the way that I described. And like a really good example is the analogy I like to use is like, if you buy a pack of 24 water bottles and take them to a sporting event, you can sell each of those water bottles for $1, right? So you just made $24, but how much did it cost you to buy those bottles? I don't know, maybe like 8. So that spread there is the profit. You sold the same number of water bottles as the grocery store, but you just parceled them out to individual people who are willing to pay a greater amount per volume. And so the same thing applies to the land, and you can just create a lot of value by parceling down from big acreage down to little acreage.
Yeah, that's a good analogy, actually. So how far within any deal that you have done, as far as like tract of land, what's the farthest you've gone with the development process? Have you gone and gotten entitlements and all different kinds of stuff? Have you done any infrastructure work, anything like that?
Nope, I haven't taken it that far. I'm definitely interested in it, but it's one of those things that you either need to have I really think you need to have your hand held through it personally. This is, I guess, my play it safe, risk adverse side coming through a little bit, but I think it is a smart decision. Is that there are a lot of unknowns, as simple as land can be, compared to a house. It's not simple in the sense that, like, oh, everything is just easy to do. It's just simple in that you can find out everything very simply. But if you don't know what you're trying to find out to begin with, then, like, so like it took me a while to even learn, like, oh, people care about what, like, is there public water running to the property? And they care, is there currently a water tap to the property? And likewise, they care, is there public sewer? And
Mhm.
if there's not, is there a septic system in place? And if there's not a septic system, then will it perk so that I can install a septic system and be able to build on it? And those were things like that you think about it, you're told about it, like, oh yeah, that makes complete sense because you want to build a house on it. You need to have the infrastructure for a house. But until people start asking you those questions when you're trying to sell it, it's like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, I didn't even think about that. So I guess to back up to my very first deal, I got lucky in the sense that the guy who wanted to buy it just wanted to ride four-wheelers, ATVs around on it. That was his use. So he didn't care about those things.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe it would have. I did have some people ask me about the septic and stuff. So it started to, teach me, like, oh, these are questions that are keep coming up. So I should dig up these answers before so that people know I could just give them the info easily. But then when it comes to entitlements, that's like a whole nother world. I'm looking at one right now in Appleton, Tennessee. And my friend Joe, who lives in Charlotte, has been, doing some good due diligence on it. And like some of the stuff he's like talking about is like, whoa, like I didn't even think this would be a consideration. Like for one example, it's like I just thought, you need to have sewer nearby. You need to be able, like, that's a big plus for a lot of developers. But not only do you need to have sewer, but you need to know that sewer has a capacity to handle
Mhm.
whatever whatever housing infrastructure you're about to put there. So you need to make sure that it can handle 100, 200 units. Like, it's not just good enough for the sewer to exist. Yep, that sewer has to be able to handle what you throwing at it. And so, like, without him knowing that and knowing to ask that question, like, I would have just been like, okay, great, we've got sewer. And there's so
Yeah.
many little things like that. Like, we won't have to deal with it on this Appleton one if it works out. But where he's at, like, in Charlotte, they make you do tree surveys. So like
Wow.
go and like tag every single tree and see what it is and justify being able to knock it down.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
you
I
can
just
get
had
some
to do
crazy
that.
stuff.
I just had to do that here in Myrtle Beach. I have a lot that I'm looking to build a co-living development on, 8-bedroom, 8-bath. And before we could tear down the house and get the demo, we had to have a survey done. They had to identify all the trees. One tree was allowed to stay standing. The rest of them could come down. But yeah, anything over a certain diameter. And then we've got another project that I've had probably about 5-6 years up in Longs, which is up near North Myrtle Beach, 26.5 acres that we're working on doing a continuing care retirement community on. And when you start getting into the development of that and the infrastructure, like I never even thought about things like water runoff or, getting into wetlands and, what can be cleared, what can't be cleared. And then, how much you have to grade the elevation and that you have to factor into your site plans to be out of a certain floodplain zone. And not necessarily just for building code, but even for financing on the back end of like what HUD may allow or not allow. So there's so much crazy stuff, and a lot of people don't realize it. They ride by and they're like, "Yeah, I would love to develop a shopping center like that." It's like everything that goes into that before they even come out of the ground is where the money's at. That's where it's so crazy. And even like timber, I learned early on in my real estate career that you could buy a tract of land and then have the land or have the timber cut off of it, sell the timber, and get a majority of your down payment back that you may be putting down towards the land. So yeah, there's a lot of things involved in it, and then there's a lot. All right. Well, now as Stephen's not able to join us today, unfortunately, this is normally his little segment, but we do a little segment called Deeper Talk with the Sheik, and I'm going to fill in for Stephen today. So
What? I missed out on the Sheik.
yeah, he's
No.
currently, I think, traveling or working on some projects. He's got a lot going on right now.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see.
But in his honor, we shall prepare and spin the wheel for you. We're going to be doing an icebreaker question, so you'll end up with a category as Jason brings this up. And once we spin it, it'll give you the category we're going to pull from. There'll be a random question, and you'll get the opportunity to hopefully expose a little bit about yourself to the audience.
It looks like it is courage. So let's draw a yellow card for the courage question. What's the best mistake you've ever made and why?
Best mistake. So I may be living through it right now. Right now, if it's best or worst, is in the air. If it works out the way that I'm hoping, then it'll be the best mistake I ever made. But if it doesn't work out, then it will maybe be the last mistake I ever made. I don't know. But so I bought a rental property in the Outer Banks, Corolla, North Carolina. It's a very beautiful place right near the beach. It's so secluded. It's an awesome area. And I've been operating it as a short-term rental for the past 2 years. I purchased it in pretty rough condition and actually went and lived there. My dad and I fixed it up together, and did as much as we could on our own, brought in some contractors for some more heavy lift type stuff. And it was going well for about a little over a year and a half. Really great performer, like even like outperforming what a lot of the local rental companies were telling me that they thought that they would be able to rent the property for. But man, it's just I self-manage it on Airbnb, and it was just really taking a toll on me. A lot of just back and forth with people who get upset over the littlest things, and just lots of headache, and decided, I'm fed up with the short-term rental game. I'm going to sell this. I listed it on market at the end of August of 2024, and didn't let people into the property because I still had some renters there. So I was just like kind of like a pre-listing, like, hey, I'll be able to get you in as I can, fit you in between some other renters or whatever. And as I was finally started, like as my rental schedule was starting to clear up for the summer, and I was starting to do showings, the area got hit with 15 inches of rain in like 18 hours. My house, it flooded on the first floor, and I've been dealing with FEMA flood insurance and a non-responsive insurance adjuster, and I'm still kind of struggling with that today. Still looking to sell the property, so if anyone wants to buy it, it's available. But it taught me a lot of things. Like, first of all, is that I don't want to be operating short-term rentals or any kind of a short-term rental portfolio. Things in the hospitality space are great, but not where my, I guess, real estate interests lie. And so it's kind of reset my, like, what do I want to be doing with real estate? I like simple long-term rentals, and then co-living properties, like sober living type stuff where I can work with a nonprofit and they can primarily be the point of contact for the tenants there. And so I can maximize my income while at the same time keeping it simple for myself, and also be kind of doing a helpful, good thing for people who need that low income housing. And short-term rentals is like so far away removed from that. It's like catering towards, at least this short-term, the one that I have near the beach, it's like catering towards vacations and fun, which are great. And like it serves its place, but not what I like want to be doing day to day. And so it taught me that like I want to simplify my portfolio. And that doesn't just mean like simplify from short-term rental to long-term rentals, but it got me thinking like I want to simplify from not even like dealing with like a vastly spread out portfolio of single family properties. Like I think it might make sense to transition into bigger assets like a multifamily or an RV park or something like that. That sure, it's only one asset, but it accomplishes pretty much the same thing as 10 single family properties. So I also learned a lot about rehab loans and refinancing, and how refinancing one property type is not always the same as refinancing another. Like I was going in it with the expectation like, I'd be able to pull out 75% loan to value, like nothing on this property. Well, it turns out since it's a short-term rental, there's not a lot of lenders that are giving you 75% loan to value. So I was dealing with a lot who were giving me like willing to give me 60 or 65. It's like, that's not going to get me the money out that I wanted. So I really had to hunt and to find that lender that would do it. I had to pay an extra point up front for them to give me the 75%, but yeah, I'll live with it. And yeah, I don't know. I've just picked up so many little pieces from it that while like looking at it in its entirety, I think I'm probably going to end up like just breaking even at the end of 2 years on it. Like I've just learned so many little bits and pieces about the real estate industry that I think will, help me moving forward. And first and foremost is like only work on deals that like you would want to do hundreds of times over. Like otherwise you're going to be, resenting it when you're talking about it on a podcast and still dealing with the problem.
Yeah, that's how you end up being the burnout landlord. They all sell this property to somebody else down there.
Yeah.
But no, if you break out even, man, I mean, you're doing good. At least it wasn't an expensive lesson that you had to learn.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I did my tour of duty with the short-term rentals for about 5 years, and then this past spring, I eventually closed it down in 2024. I was just like, it's exhausting. And some of the things I've just started looking at nowadays is like that whole energy suck, like finding out things that are energy sucks on you.
Jason, you're freezing up a little bit.
What's that?
I said you're freezing up a little bit.
Yeah, sorry.
About the energy drains, I believe you were talking about that.
Yeah, I was talking about the energy drains, and pretty much, I'm trying to figure, like, I start looking at things in a basis of whether it gives me energy or whether it sucks the energy out of me. And if it sucks the energy out of me, I'm delegating it or, trying to figure out a way if I don't want to keep it. Going down that route now, because I think for me to be able to scale my business and make my business grow, I have to do the things that get me excited and provide me energy.
Love that. Yeah, I would say that if you can have passion and ability cross-sect, you have the ability and you have the passion, that's a great place to be. For me personally, I love short-term rentals. However, I've never been an operator. I've always farmed out the operations to somebody else, and my job is just to really just whatever I want to do. Hey, Paul, we need an electrician over there. Do you want to do it or do you want me to do it? I'll do it. Oh, no, you do it. Okay, you take a fee on that this time. So for those of you out there considering short-term rental market, I highly recommend don't try to be an operator unless you're an operator. Just hire an operator.
I would agree with that. But All right, Teddy. Well, we appreciate you coming on today. What's a good way if anybody wanted to connect with you? They got a good land deal or something for you to take a look at, or just want to find out information about more about what you have going on.
I'm a big fan of direct mail, so my mailing address is um, that is how I primarily market for land leads. But yeah, you can reach me on Instagram at Teddy Benz. Shoot me a message, and I will get back to you. Yeah, anything land related, right up my alley. I love creative financing, any type of property as well. So I'm a big nerd and underwriter, and back end analyzing deals, structuring them is my forte. And land just so happens to be the particular niche that I'm focused on. But any kind of creative real estate, I'm happy to help with.
Do you
Are you
do
doing
any
that nationwide? Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, do you do any partnerships? AK, would you consider bringing in a partner to re-up your short-term rental without you having to do anything?
Sure.
Well, so I I was actually considering getting a property management company to take it over and basically do what
Yeah.
you said, right? I'm not the operator. I own it. I can go visit it. I can do the work myself. I can get someone, I can say, you hire out the work. But man, talking with I don't know, maybe they're just the most archaic companies out there or something. Like, because short-term rentals have been a thing in the Outer Banks since before Airbnb was even conceived. Like, it's just been the thing. And so like these companies have just been around for a long time, and they just seem very close-minded, and they're like, no, like you're not going to be able to rent this out for, more than like X amount a year. And I'm like, well, no, I am renting it for more than that. Like I'm literally doing it right now. And they're like, no, you're not. Like how, like it doesn't happen. So like,
Yeah.
so hiring them wouldn't have been the best decision. So maybe someone who, uh, you know, gets how to, maximize short-term rentals and isn't
Yeah.
so,
So
short-sighted on it would,
different side of that coin, real quick, is I have an operator that she lives in Texas and she runs short-term rentals for me here in South Carolina and in upstate New York. And the dynamic pricing, the whole slew of things that I don't even have to worry about, but just watching my Airbnbs outperform the ones around it, beautiful.
Well, another thing too, I know this happened in Myrtle Beach, and this is kind of how we were able to like crush it during COVID and during that time period where we got in a little bit before COVID, but was in Myrtle Beach, everybody wanted that week to week, that Saturday to Saturday or Sunday to Sunday rental. And it's like they, especially as the market started changing and am I frozen again?
A little bit.
So I think one thing is like when the market started changing and maybe people weren't vacationing for a week at a time, they started going 5 days instead of, a full 7 days. We were able to feed into that market and make some good money. But yeah, there's a lot of people that are just stuck in that week to week rental. And, Airbnb, you have to be more flexible with that model. But yes, if I get back into short-term rentals, I just want to go check on my property once a year or wherever it may be and check it out.
AK, have a vacation.
Yeah, check on my property, Paul.
Oh, yes. Business. Sorry, but right off.
But all right, well, thanks for staying on with us again, Teddy. We greatly appreciate it. It was great to get to know you a little bit better, and I think we're gonna probably be seeing each other here in the next couple of days. Are you heading up to Charlotte on Wednesday?
yeah, I'll be there for the sub 2 meetup after Aspire. So yeah, it was great talking with you guys. Thank you for having me on.
Awesome, man. Well, enjoy your evening, and we'll see you soon, brother. Take care.
You too. Yep. See you guys.